Greetings, young Portal Master. I have been waiting for you. I am Eon.
Now, wait. That's not my intro. Hello, single Portal Master watching. My name is Scrape, and today is finally the day. The day of reckoning. The day we've all been waiting for. The day where I showcase the entries to the Portal Master contest. Before I start, I just want to get some stuff out of the way. First, these entries will be showcased in the order they were, well, entered. I'll try to remember to include timestamps for each character if you just want to hear what I have to say about that specific one. Second, I want to go over the criteria I set in my first video, just so we're all on the same page. Each entry should include a basic character biography, name, age, backstory, all that jazz, their core/preferred elements, and whether they're an old or a new age Portal Master, plus any other info you want to include. Third, thank you for putting up with how long this has taken. I don't want to make excuses, but this genuinely grew into something much bigger than I was anticipating. As you may have already guessed from the trailer and teasers I've been posting, I took it upon myself to draw each and every entry to celebrate my first ever successful contest, which, as more entries piled in, turned out to be a sky whale of a task. But it's done, and I'm finally ready to show you all the results. Starting with Entry 1, Justain, submitted by Night Haunter. Oh, just popping in to say one more thing. Some of the footage of my art was lost to the void. Justain's included. So I have some possibly unrelated art in the background for those sections.
Meet Justain Ebonywing. Justain once fled his homeworld. He was scared, all alone, and worst of all, he accidentally wounded someone. After days of running, he found the academy, where he met the spirit of Eon. Eon taught him to be a Skylander, but noticed the greater good in him. Instead, Justain got trained to become a Portal Master.
Overall, I'd have to say I really like Justain. He gives me Milo from Sword and Shield vibes. A nice gardener himbo man. He struck me as a new age Portal Master because of the outfit, so I decided to swap the rose on his belt for a portal core. Though I imagine the rose piece could work as like a cover of sorts if you ever need to go undercover. I also swapped the single vine pattern on his arm for an overall leaf pattern, put little roses on his shoes to tie in the motif, slapped some pockets on his shorts, and gave him some tan lines, since I imagine he'd do a lot of gardening, so I spend a lot of time in the sun. Other than that, I kept his design overall the same. I wish I had gotten a bit more info on his personality and stuff, but from the ref I was given, he seemed quite smug. Smug himbo. I could totally see him boasting about his superior plant life that he grows, especially once he's comfortable at the academy. Though he'd still have a heart of gold through all that pride. I can also imagine him using his rose as his main weapon. Perhaps even a rose sword? Definitely something I'd love to see. I really hope I was able to capture this life element hung to your satisfaction. Entry 2, Andromeda, submitted by Star Sapphire.
Element, magic. Species, unknown. Personalities. Andromeda is wise, loves jokes, and is very motherly. Star is shy, neurodivergent, and smart. She is quick-witted and okay with murder. Eve is adventurous, down to murder, and knows how to con a con man. Weakness. She is forced to serve whoever possesses the stone. Andromeda first appeared on the eve of, and returned every half-century since. When the Great War started, she stayed to fight alongside the Light Portal Masters. However, the stone she wore was broken in a struggle against the Nightmare King, and she split into two entities, Eve and Star. The two portal masters held onto the broken pieces, guarding them against villains. They've been trying to find a way to become whole ever since.
Aha, 2-for-1 entry, I see. Since they're technically the same character, I decided to draw Eve and Star together. While Andromeda struck me as an OG portal master, these two seemed more New Age. I could definitely see them lying dormant after Andromeda's defeat, only to awaken when a wave of New Age portal masters started. I decided to put Eve's core on her hair tie, though I'm not sure how practical that would be. And while it's not pictured, I imagine Star's would be on her back, attached to her belt/sash thing. Because of their ties to Andromeda, I tried to give them a healthy in-between of traditional Portal Master robes and the more modern, but still semi-medieval inspired clothes that the Portal Masters in Ring of Heroes have, while also keeping a similar silhouette to their original outfits. In Star's drawing, it looked like they had pointy ears, so I leaned more into that, as well as made their hair seem less like, well, hair, and more like blobs of space matter stuff. The concept makes more sense in my head, but I really hope you like them. I can imagine them being troublemakers of the Academy, causing mischief and pulling pranks, but only generally harmless ones. Entry 3. Vanesse. Submitted by Potamus, also known as Kobu.
Vanesse. Of magic and undead. 17. Short as a twig and lost in a flying realm. A perfect introduction for one weary portal master into the world of Skylands, right? Typically reserved, earnest, blunt but genuine. Vanesse spent the earliest parts of his life reading through study notes of Professor P. Grungly and Hugo, as well as following writing as his idol Ankh Beekman inspired him to do so. By the age of 10, Vanesse had set off across the Skylands to visit each and every location of the original 32 champions, from Ignitus's village to Gustav's undead cliffs. During his travels, Vanesse uncovered his latent dominion over undead and magic, able to traverse the Shrine of the Unliving and the Quicksilver Vault's anvil chain. By the age of 15, Vanesse had made his way to Aeon Citadel, albeit far less populated thanks to migration to the Skylanders Academy. All was not lost, however, as Aeon returned by chance and officially initiated Vanesse into the wings of Portal Mastery, where he now stands by to trudge into the most sealed magic dens, or decrepit undead pits.
I'll probably be saying this a lot, but I genuinely loved drawing Vanesse here. Since no species was specified, I decided to lean more into the vampiric side of things, especially with the vibes I was getting from his color palette. He had originally struck me as an OG Portal Master, or at least an in-between of the two generations, which is why I didn't give him a core, though I could also see it being part of the sash on his ancient tome, possibly in place of where the buckle would usually be. I love the concept of a more scholarly Portal Master, as well as all the references in his backstory to things in canon. I put the elements on his sash similar to Aeon's, though all in shades of red for that more monochromatic palette, and had such a blast rendering the glowing part of his staff. I couldn't tell if it was supposed to be pure energy or a crystal, so I tried to do something in between the two. I could see him being like a traveling NPC you'd run into on some levels, or like if it was an open world Skylanders game, he'd show up at certain locations and give hints on the lore about the land, stuff like that. This also might just be me, but he seems like the type to write in comic sans for no other reason than 'cause he can. I'm also very sorry if I'm pronouncing his name wrong. I was torn between Vanessa and Vanesse, so I just went with Vanesse. Entry 4, The Wanderer, submitted by Gaming Scientist 03.
Element, dark. Gender, genderless. Height, 3 feet 0 inches. Appearance, the entirety of their body is purple, like the darkness. Skylander Supercharger's final boss. Draped across their shoulders is a cloak that serves as armor for their relatively fragile body. They also have a stark white mask that resembles the cultist masks from the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. Slung across their back is a sword sharp enough to slice through metal like butter. When they talk, they have a faint echo that sounds like the darkness. Affiliation, neutral. Special trait 1. Should they be killed, their body will collapse into darkness, regenerating after an hour. The only way to truly kill them is to destroy their mask, which functions like the Lich's phylactery. Because this is what regenerates them, they put it on their back when they engage in battle. Special trait 2. They are able to coalesce some of their essence into a burning shadow that flies forward. When they scream with the fury of the darkness. If someone is below them, they can dive, creating a shockwave with shadowy flames billowing out from their landing point. The darkness created this entity to spread their influence. However, as soon as they were formed, extreme wanderlust took over. A desire to explore all of the islands. No matter how many times the darkness called back their extension, they always ran off once more. As they explored, they saw things that made them realize just how cruel the world can be. Seeing as they have no name whatsoever, the denizens of Skylands gave them various nicknames, from the Wanderer, because of how they are always in search of something, to Ghost, due to how silently they pass through towns. If you aren't paying attention, it is extremely easy to miss out on them. Personality. Despite the ever-present scowl on their face, they are always willing to carry out tasks for anyone who asks them, so long as they benefit. If someone angers them, they strike out with their dark magic, followed by swinging their sword. Song that summarizes their character. The main menu theme of Hollow Knight.
These next 3 were the first entries to only be given a written description, so I had such a fun time giving them their first drawn forms. This first one, The Wanderer, while definitely not being your traditional Portal Master, struck me as definitely an old one, from around the time of the Great War. The whole rebelling from one's creator story is always one I'll fall for, and is also one I've used in my own Skylander OCs, so I fell in love with this character immediately. Silent, stoic, but not in a snooty way. A creature you'd want to be friends with even if they do have an eternal resting bitch face. I decided to add petrified darkness along their body to harken back to their origins, and gave them a more ghost-like, wispy form to allude to the fact that they were never intended to be their own separate being. Almost like they're missing something. Which is also connected to the translucentish effect I tried to give them around their limbs and tail. If they were a Skylander's figure, I could see that part being made of the same stuff at the end of Enigma's cape. Like, the whole translucency. I'm assuming you understand. I also added some petrified darkness to their mask, so they can retreat into it if they need to recharge, like their special trait says. I can imagine they became a Portal Master after the war, possibly even seeking refuge with one of the Light Ones who saw the good in them, and taught them how to use their powers properly. I could also see them using smaller portals as an attack to pop up behind their enemies, into a sort of full-body version of their second special trait. Entry 5, Zovaal, Submitted also by Gaming Scientist 03.
Element, undead. Gender, male. Height, 6 feet 5 inches. Appearance. Zovaal is tall and muscular, with blue tattoos pocketing his gray skin. He has chains dangling from his clothing, but don't impede his movement. He has a metal chin guard that serves to make him look like someone you don't want to cross paths with. Affiliation, Chaos. Special trait. He is able to use the chains dangling from his clothes to rip the soul out of his enemies. When a soul is severed from the body, he inserts it into a suit of armor to fight for him. The armor sets are bound to his unwavering will, meaning that the only freedom is in death. Backstory. From a young age, Zovaal has been fascinated with necromancy. He put all of his studies aside in favor of perfecting the art of soul rending. First, he tested it out on the neighborhood pests, drawing little attention to himself in the process. When he moved on to using the souls of his classmates, he was sentenced to death by guillotine. As his head was placed on the chopping block, Zovaal extracted his executioner's soul from his body, saving his own life. The armor that was animated by the soul cut him free, and he put himself into exile for his own safety. At a later date, impressed with his skill in necromancy, Chaos approached Zovaal and proposed that he join Chaos's family. Sip. Sensing that Chaos was genuine, he accepted it. He now has more armor than ever, and is capable of making an entire army of souls. Song that summarizes his character. Torghast, Tower of the Damned.
We've got ourselves our first truly evil portal master. Yet again submitted by Scientist, Zovaal gave me some Plague Doctor vibes for some reason, so I at first tried to lean into that. I tried to give him a more bird-like mask, but decided on something more human-like since I realized it was supposed to be a chin guard. I also tried a more traditional chin guard thing, but that just wasn't working out, so COVID-safe metal mask it is. Because of how long this video took, that joke is now outdated. You're welcome. The fact that his chains are used to remove people's souls gave me the idea to make them look more ethereal, similar to like crystallish energy vibe Vanesse's staff had. I imagine they wouldn't always be glowing, but when in use or charged by souls he's gathered, they'd be a sweet neon blue. The blue tattoos all over his body would also glow, maybe bestowed upon him when he joined the Chaos clan. Looking back on it, I wish I would have given him more armor-like clothes to rate to his abilities, but the segmented robes get that vibe across, I guess? I hope? He's also now a Drow. 'Cause Drow. I like Drow. I could see him being a boss, similar to Brock or Brute, that resides within Chaos's current base for whatever game he's a part of. Perhaps he could even be a reoccurring mini-boss / threat throughout some levels leading up, but you only fight him specifically in the castle? Either way, I imagine it would be a terrifying level, and it would probably be my absolute favorite. This is also me delving into fanfiction territory here, but I can also see Chaos approaching Zovaal because he's secretly a simp for the Necromancer. Just utter simp. Entry 6, Revali. Also submitted by Gaming Scientist 03.
Element, air. Gender, male. Height, 5 feet 5 inches. Appearance. Revali is an avian like Jetback, making his home in the Frostfest Mountains. His body is covered in light gray feathers and wears little else to impede his movement. Special trait. Living in solitude, he has perfected the art of forging his own arrows for just about every situation. There are the standard arrows, arrows that are rigged to explode, arrows that ignite, arrows that freeze enemies in their tracks, and arrows that electrocute. To use the arrows, he has a hand-carved bow that fires 3 arrows at once. He has also mastered the art of restocking his arrows mid-battle, able to pull more in on the fly. Bird pun. Affiliation, Chaos, Sleeper Agent. Backstory. Revali has always been antisocial, preferring to live alone instead of cooperating with others. He exiled himself to the Frostfest Mountains, where he has trained himself to become a skilled archer. When Chaos and Co. heard detonations while exploring the mountains, they followed the noises and found a bird who was skilled in archery. Revali used his arrows to defend his home, but he was defeated after a fierce battle. Still refusing to join Chaos, he accepted the offer to become a sleeper agent so long as he was left alone. Personality. Revali is extremely salty to everyone, because of how much of an egotistical jerk he is. His family nicknamed him Ravioli. Driven by his saltiness, he prefers to go in alone, thinking that he is the best at everything. To make him cooperate, an extraordinary show of force and/or persuasion is required. Catchphrase. That's so asinine. Revali's song. The Champion Revali. Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity OST. On YouTube.
Crossover we don't deserve, but desperately need. Legend of Spyro, Breath of a Dying franchise. Quite the different entry here. I really like the concept of a sleeper agent for the darkness, possibly infested with petrified darkness unknowingly. The parasite lying dormant until activated. I love it. If I had understood the reference to Revali from Legend of Zelda before designing him, I probably would have referenced him in the design. But alas, I was blind to the joys of that series until now. Instead, I leaned heavy into the Jetback/Skybaird inspiration. Despite liking the art, looking at it now, I'd have to say it's my least favorite design. Not because of Scientist entry, I love every bit of that. It was my own interpretation that strayed much too far from his original idea. I tried to give him slicker, less cumbersome clothes since Portal Master robes would probably impede flight. I have no idea what the amulet was even for, and the eye spiral. I think it was supposed to be referenced to Chaos's dormant control over him. But even still, his pose and expression scream shy and nervous, nothing like the personality showcased in his bio. And I'm going to stop rambling before this turns into roasting Scrape's art hour. I'll probably come back and redraw him at some point, but for now, I'm gonna leave it be. Focusing back on the concept submitted, I imagine Revali could equip his arrows with portals in a sense, having one open up wherever the arrow lands and using this to his advantage on the battlefield, combined with his other arrow types. Alright, editing Scrape here. I just wanted to say I did end up redrawing Revali here. I ended up changing the pose, the color of the feathers to be what it was actually described as well as giving him his bow and making it generally better. So I hope you guys like the updated design. Entry 7, Omega, submitted by Mr. Duck.
Core/preferred element, life, undead, and tech, to operate armor. Physical appearance, I can't draw to save my life. Omega is a mutated bacteriophage with a mechanized suit of living armor. Omega himself is about 5.5 feet tall and looks like the standard bacteriophage. However, we mostly see him in his mechanized living armor, which is a similar lieu to Drill Sergeant, plus a mech suit. His living armor is dark blue with gray accents. The armor acts similarly to a mech, which Omega can operate out of without getting his hands dirty. The armor has 6 legs, like a bacteriophage, but 2 human-esque arms, which he uses the elements with. He does not have ropes, but he has a long cape that comes out of the back of his mech. Backstory: Omega is truly one of his kind as a Portal Master. After the events of Skylanders Superchargers, a deadly virus ran rampant through the Skylands, a product of the death of the darkness, and Portal Masters could do little to help. Their magic was ineffective. That's when Master Eon came up with the genius idea of releasing a virus-killing virus. The bacteriophage was released into Skylands. However, in a tragic turn of events, the virus killed all of the bacteriophages, except for one. Master Eon, realizing he could not let any more of these special organisms die, gave the bacteriophage sentience. The virus grew to the size of a human and awoke confused and cold and hungry in the courtyard of the Skylanders Academy. Master Eon explained the entire situation to him, becoming a master of the elements, fighting off evil, etc., etc., though he had some difficulty taking it in, as he was born only minutes ago. However, he soon discerned he was hungry because he needed a host to provide energy and nourishment. He realized he was too weak to fight the forces of darkness on his own, without proper nourishment. So with the help of Drill Sergeant, he recovered a suit of living armor. Armor with a soul. This essentially cheated his host system, giving him infinite energy to feed off of. With that, Omega was given a name by his new best pal Drill Sergeant, and trained himself in protecting Skylands from evil, and enjoying the occasional loaded sandwich. Of course.
Sentient bacteria in a set of robotic armor. A concept I don't think I've ever seen before, but it's one I genuinely love. Take a shot every time I say something like that in this video. Now, I do want to come out and say, as I worked on this design, it completely slipped my mind that he was supposed to have 6 legs. So, if you'll forgive me for that, I'd imagine the lower half of his robot would be similar to Crankcase's legs, or at least as close as an Archean equivalent would be. I also ended up fudging the colors, but let's just, let's ignore that. Just pretend he's the right colors. I could imagine the arms could be retractable, aka my excuse for not drawing the second arm. Or perhaps he lost it in battle. Choose your pick. And designed it similarly to a Juggernaut mixed with Crypt King's OG concept. Moving from the design, the concept of the Darkness's death having an adverse effect on the Skylands is an idea I quite like. And Eon working to create a virus to stop the virus is honestly pretty cool. Like a magical vaccine. Though I don't actually know if his backstory mentioned how the antivirus was made. It would be cool if Eon worked on a sample of the original virus, maybe even with Chaos if this takes place while he's at the Academy after Superchargers, in order to make the antivirus like they do in the real world. Well, I feel like the life element addition is a tad unnecessary. An undead and tech cored Portal Master is a combination I really like. Speaking of cores, I added the Portal Core to his suit right in the center, since the mention of the Darkness's defeat puts Omega as a New Age Portal Master. I could see Omega being an NPC at the Academy, possibly in charge of a bacteria eradication minigame, though I'm not quite sure how the minigame would function. Definitely something to think about, though. Entry 8. Pato. Submitted by Captain Cooties.
Pato. He's a 52-year-old scientist who basically hates everything that the human race has done and is doing. He wanted to help with all the problems that they've created, but instead was forced to take over testing on people to make them into superhuman monsters to use at war. He decides he wants to overthrow the government and makes himself into a monster. At first it seems like he would have gotten some sort of water-based powers because of the aquatic features he was starting to grow. But after an accident at the testing facility where he got burned by a subject, he finds out that he has the power to absorb other people's powers and uses them himself, at the cost of him feeling twice the damage of what they would originally had done. The darkness, being able to sense an ever-growing power of hatred coming from Earth, attempts to corrupt Pato into a dark portal master by filling his mind with dark thoughts. Instead, Pato used his newfound power to absorb the power the darkness had been using against him, though his mind wasn't all that safe now that he had to suffer twice the amount of mental damage the darkness had tried to do. The horrible thoughts made him slowly lose sanity, having random outbreaks of rage at nobody or everyone in particular. Now, he didn't want to save everyone. He only cared about saving himself. They doomed themselves, he thought. I don't deserve any of this. From the darkness's actions, Pato had learned about the Skylanders dimension, and had also learned that he had a special affinity for portal magic. He decided he would colonize a new world, and save himself. He can use someone else's powers as many times as he absorbed them. For example, if he got hit by a laser beam from someone only one time, he can cast it only once. He is fluent in fire casting though, because that was the first thing he absorbed even before his powers were fully developed, so fire is naturally his core element. He also still has the power to corrupt someone's mind taken from the darkness. He hasn't used it, and is waiting for a good opportunity to come up. Because he was originally going to be transformed into a water-based shark man, he can breathe and swim underwater, but of course he's not able to use his fire powers if he does decide to take a dip in the water. I do think when it comes to character designing, every detail has to have meaning behind it. For example, when coming up with Pato, I basically modeled him after Christopher Columbus. Not literally though, obviously. Like Columbus, Pato wants to colonize a land that's already been discovered and inhabited. Even his clothes in its final form are similar to the pictures of Columbus that I could find on Google. And I even wanted an aquatic-based form because of Columbus's connection to sailing all the way to America.
I've always been a sucker for characters that have a lot of inspiration and thought put into them. This character just strengthens my love for that. A Jekyll and Hyde style scientist modeled after Christopher Columbus. There's just so many layers to that, and all of them just make this character even better. Since the images submitted were grayscale, I made my best guess at the colors, so I'm sorry if they're wrong. I decided to draw Pato kind of mid-transformation, to draw the best of both worlds, since I couldn't decide which I wanted to draw. I gave his shark parts a similar color palette to the darkness itself, since I felt its corruption would probably affect more than just his mind. Though I didn't go as far as to add petrified darkness, because I wanted to keep that sleek, shark-like aesthetic. In contrast, I made his clothes a lighter color, as well as added a portal core to the chain at its hip, since he's originally from Earth. I've dabbled in characters with the ability to steal/copy powers before, but I honestly adore this take on it, as well as the limitations put in place to stop it from being too overpowered. I also can't stop thinking about Pato absorbing the darkness's powers, possibly causing a smaller version of the darkness to kind of inhabit his mind. Like the typical angel and devil on your shoulder trope. Just only with the devil. I could see him being an enemy, not associated with chaos, but working for himself. Up until a certain point where you manage to get through to him and convince him to join your team. You know, power of friendship and all that. I'm also not sure if his shark form is intended to be permanent, but maybe the more Pato gains control of his powers, the easier it is to control. So in the end, he's able to shift and change at will. But I do also like the idea of his shark form being permanent to kind of reflect him distancing himself from humanity. Entry 9, Bruno, submitted by Dunder.
Name, Bruno. Element, water. Appearance. His hair and eyes both carry the texture of ice. His hair and eyes are both still fully functional and work just like they should. He wears a big cloak that covers everything from the shoulders down to just above his feet. On the bottom right side of his cloak, there is a blue-colored portal symbol. He also wears a pin that represents the water element on the left side of his chest. Underneath the cloak is a vest that reaches from his neck down to his waist. The vest's primary use is to help him protect his neck from the cold. It also fits pretty well. He wears dark gray-colored pants and has a pair of beige-colored boots. The arms on the coat are a little too big, which usually makes it hard to see his hands. Power. Even though he belongs to the water element, he focuses on ice. He is able to create smaller icebergs in a matter of seconds. However, it does drain a lot of his power. He is able to shape weapons out of ice, which he can use to fight with, and he is currently practicing the ability to turn himself into an unbreakable form of ice. Backstory. Bruno grew up in the northern parts of Skylands with his older brother, Giovanni. Giovanni wasn't from there originally. He had been living most of his life in the southern parts of Skylands, where it's much warmer. This led the two brothers to study different types of magic. Bruno learned how to bend and control ice, while his brother learned how to control fire. They trained with each other very often to find weaknesses and strengths in their powers. Their village contains a very powerful relic. That relic is Haldor's ring, which is the sole reason why snow is even able to naturally exist in the Skylands, without the help of Haldor after he passed away 10 years ago. It is the brothers' sworn mission to protect that ring. Their village is also quite small, with only a few inhabitants, like, for example, a few mabus and some Arctic foxes. This led the village to be very vulnerable to raids from the evil forces of chaos. One day while practicing ice sculpting, Bruno heard a loud scream. It was coming from the village. He ran back there as fast as possible and saw that the village was under attack. He saw his brothers fighting and holding back the enemies, but he was no match for the hundreds of minions that Chaos had sent. They threw his brother in a cage and sent him off in some sort of helicopter. Before Bruno was able to do anything, he was hit in the back of the head, knocking him out. When he later woke up, his entire village had been burned down. there were only a few survivors. Not only had Chaos and his minions taken his brother captive and burned down his village, but they had also stolen Haldor's ring. He found out about a base that belonged to Chaos that was pretty close. It even had the same logo on it as the helicopter that took away Giovanni had. This led Bruno to start an infiltration mission on the base to rescue his brother and get the ring back. He was able to fight his way through the base and retrieve the ring, but right after he entered the prison part of the base, he found his brother had been killed by the trolls. To this day, Bruno has sworn to get his revenge on Chaos and his troops for what he had done to his brother. And after joining Eon and the Skylanders, he finally felt like his goal could be possible.
Now, I do have to say I took a few more artistic liberties when drawing this character. Why, you may ask? Well, it's because Bruno here gave me such a strong Frost Elf vibe. I just had to. If his brother had also been submitted, I definitely would have gone the Fire Elf route. Or maybe even like the same species as Torch. So they're more like found family than biological brothers. But this isn't about Giovanni. We're here to talk about Bruno. Bruno gave me some heavy anime protagonist vibes. In a good way, I promise. So I leaned more into that while drawing. Since his hair is basically made of ice, it made sense that it could go anime wild and defy all laws of physics. I also decided to color/shade it similar to how I do crystals, since in the given reference it seemed very shiny. Well, he may look like the type who deserves head pats. Be careful or you'll impale your hand. Maybe. On the ends of his coat, I tried to add a creeping frost effect. Not quite sure if it would be real frost, since that would make his coat very crunchy, but it was a detail I felt could help pull the whole design together and remind you that despite being all bundled up, his power is still icy and cold, or something like that. I kept the rune on his cloak, same as the one in the reference, since I felt it would work really well, despite it being the one I tend to use for the tech element. That's an association on my end, and not really a critique, I just can't shut up about my headcanons. I love the inclusion of some lore along with his design, that I can totally see being an entire adventure pack. And the concept of a ring that controls/basically creates cold weather is really cool. Haldor also strikes me as an ancient portal master, maybe from around the same iteration as Natty Bumpo. I definitely want to know more about him, and could also see him possibly being the person to mentor Bruno in his powers before he died. I'm getting sidetracked again. There's just so many good little details in this bad boy, I can't help it. The way you communicated his powers is really nice. Setting limitations that he's working to overcome leaves a lot of potential for the character development. But also having his powers tie into his interests is really good. It makes him seem like a real person, which, while not always necessary, is fantastic in a character. I honestly have so much I could say about this guy, but I already know this video is going to be long as fuck, so I'll restrain myself and cut it off here. Entry 10, Talinn, submitted by Serendipity246.
Age, 49 years. Species, Spectre. Was human. Element, Serendipity. All elements enabled by emotion. Alignment, Chaotic good. Talinn was one of many Eon's young apprentices, earning his title as Portal Master and becoming headmaster of the Skylanders Academy after Eon's passing. Over time, this Portal Master took his own life for others, thus losing his humanity and becoming a Spectre. Although he may not be human, his heart still remains to be justified and loyal, both good and evil.
We're at the halfway mark, and what a better Portal Master than Talinn here. I do want to preface that I have little to no experience drawing beards or tough dudes, but I had a lot of fun nonetheless. In retrospect, I wish I would have included more nods to him being a Spectre for the drawing, but aside from that, I really do like it. For the flame-like details on his clothes, I think it was originally a mistake that I did one glove blue and one green, but after a little bit, I decided to keep it. You can't really see it, but I imagine the other side of his pants would have the green rather than the blue for his design, so it's more or less mirrored. I also thought it would be fun to add a braided bit to his belt for no reason. I definitely didn't accidentally misinterpret the chain linking to the crystal to be woven. No, that couldn't be me. Happy accident? I also did my best to include the little red line in his left eye, though I'm not sure if it translated very well, so I'm sorry about that. In regards to the description given, my only gripe is I wish there was more. Talinn seems like such an interesting character, and I wish more details were included. Why did he give his life? What went into him becoming a specter? What significance does the crystal on his belt hold? All good questions I really want answered. Speaking of questions, Talinn here is the first and only Portal Master to wield a custom element, that being the element of serendipity. Aside from that being an amazing as fuck name for an element, the description mentions that it's controlled by emotions. But how exactly does it work? Does the emotion behind the attack/spell dictate the element it's linked to? Is it similar to the Chaos element, or possibly even its counterpart? I need answers, please. I am invested in this character, I must know more. Entry 11. Aphain. Submitted by Falling Vulture.
Name. Aphain. Elements. Life. He's a stoner. And tech. Age 32. Backstory. Trigger warning for child death. Aphain was female at birth, growing up in a very strict Chiatan home. As he grew older, he realized his true identity after years of fighting family and being disowned by them. He was able to get top surgery and a name change. When he graduated, he was able to get a scholarship for classes on therapy and how to become a therapist. When he turned 25, he found out about his 2-year-old brother Cain, who was in the hospital fighting cancer. Over 5 years, him and his brother got closer. Every day, Aphain would come into the hospital to read to Cain and play with him. Eventually, Cain had become cancer-free, and as a celebration gift, Aphain bought him a lot of Skylanders. When school came around, Cain had brought all of the Skylanders to school with him, and as Aphain worked the day away, the school called him, telling him about a school shooting. Cain had been shot multiple times in the chest. As Aphain rushed to the hospital, he was in time to hold his brother's hand for one last time. In his grief from the death, he had gone into a depressive state, eating his feelings and having breakdowns often. He kept his brother's Skylanders in a box for years, never opening them. 2 years later, he had a much more stable mind state. As he was sorting through boxes, he came upon the miniatures in the portal. Wanting to see if the system still worked, and to reminisce about times with his brother, he plugged in the portal. As he touched it, a blinding light filled the room, and suddenly he was within the Skylands, staring up at a giant tree monster. He is now a student on Eon, and a young trainer for the Skylanders, although he's much more of a therapist to the island's resident vendors.
Again, I'm really sorry if I get any of these names wrong. Dark backstory, childhood trauma, trans, therapist, stoner? Sound the alarm, boys, we've got all the markings of an incredible character here. All jokes aside, this is another character I fell in love with immediately. With his drawing, I completely neglected his ties to the tech element in favor of leaning heavily into the stoner life vibe. So I'm very sorry about that. But I could imagine him carrying around spare parts and loose pieces in his bag to help any tech-based Skylanders. I could also imagine him having a portal core attached to his bag strap, almost like a keychain. Which, of course, I didn't end up drawing, because his sweater covered it all up. Speaking of which, I tried adding subtle life-inspired design to his jacket. Nothing too in your face, but it's there. It's also really hard to see, but I tried adding the life element symbol to his gauges, because coordination. I also couldn't pass up giving him a blunt. I feel like he would probably be the type to grow weed in the Academy garden, or at least in a pot on his windowsill. Moving past that, I have to give props to his backstory. It honestly made me cry. All the ups and downs, everything getting better just to plummet. I don't want to get into the real-life implications and ties, because I'm sure we can all see them, but it really takes his character to a whole nother level. I know it's only a snippet, but you tackled the topics really well, and I applaud you for that. I may be wrong, but I also get the feeling that Treerex was Kane's favorite Skylander, which may be why he and Aphain bonded so much. But that's just my personal headcanon. Back on lighter things, I could see him and Hugo either getting along or being therapy rivals, like frenemies almost. Possibly even doing therapy sessions for each other and bonding over shared interests. Hugo trans. Just imagining Hugo hitting his first blunt is making me laugh, and I'd give anything to see that. Entry 12, Yokai, submitted by Jama May.
No one really knows where it came from, when it appeared, or how it got here. No one knows anything about it, but one thing is for certain. In the deepest, darkest depths of the foggy flats, you can hear it, laughing maliciously in the darkness, like a child on a playground. You try to run from the mysterious voice, but hearing it means it's already too late. I'm just spitballing here, since I know little about Skylanders still. Yokai, created by a witch doctor-esque Skylander. The witch doctor's identity is unknown to everyone except Yokai. That created it for the sole purpose of showing that a person that is from the dark element can create something good, but unfortunately, it succumbed to the dark side and is now a piece of shit. Imagine Dreamcatcher, but worse. Instead of dumb pranks, it would actually kill people. Actually, Kai's dreams are the only ones Dreamcatcher refrains from going into because it's that fucked up, and she has a much harder time getting out of it. It has a wicked yet annoying laugh, too, that strikes fear and annoyance into your very soul. The pranks it does always cause bodily harm to others, so people hate them even more because of it. It likes to prank the Doom Raiders and bother Queenie just because. A more in-depth description into Kai's powers. It can teleport in a cloud of smoke, kind of like Stealth Elf. The smoke leaves behind an overwhelmingly sweet smell. Smoke possession. Basically, if you inhale the smoke, you get possessed, like Medusa, but with smell. The possessed have no memory of what they did while possessed, and it's easier to possess them the more times they are possessed. Possession can be broken by splashing them with water, but the water has to be enough to engulf their head. Eye possession. This possession takes a lot of energy, so Kai doesn't really use it much. However, this one is much harder to break from. There is no known way of breaking this type of possession. Invisibility. Technically, this isn't true invisibility, but if they stay still while using the ability, they can still hide from you. Overall, she's an asshole.
We've got ourselves another Dark Portal Master! This is the first one I'd consider completely inhuman, which is really fucking cool. It's not every day a creature made of smog gains the ability to control portals and absolutely fucks with everyone around them. They definitely strike me as a chaotic neutral. The type to really only do things to benefit themselves, and switching on a dime depending on how they see a situation playing out. I added a green panel to their robes to tie in with the green in their smoke, and to break up the purple that makes up most of their palette, as well as some lighter/darker smoke patterns on the cloth, cause I felt they'd be extra like that. I can see Yokai being a mini-boss/recurring character in later levels just for the fun of it. Like, yeah, I know you guys beat me and I'm supposed to be playing along, but I'm still gonna be a pain in the ass. Maybe even popping up around the academy at certain times and you can go find them for like secret minigames, or maybe even less than legal fetch quests. I love the idea that they can take over a person's body when their smoke is inhaled, though I'm wondering if it has any limitations compared to the eye contact version, other than being broken more easily. If a person has no sense of smell, can they still be infected? Are there physical changes to those infected, like maybe they have similar eyes to Yokai, or similar colored smoke curling out of their mouths, stuff like that? I can imagine Yokai's weak spot in battle being their face/mask, so that's like where you'd have to aim, and it would possibly be the only really solid part about them. So when they're sleeping or hiding, that's all that remains until they summon their body dramatically as possible and scare everyone out of their skins in a 5-mile radius. I can also imagine they're able to change their size/form so they're able to fit through really small spaces, but their mask would also limit that, so if they bite off more than they can chew, they might get stuck in an air duct or something. Hilarity ensues. Overall, they may be a bitch, but they're my bitch. No, I'm not taking constructive criticism. Entry 13. Vic. Submitted by La Chevre.
Full name: Victoire Fortune. Mastery: Traptanium. Preferred elements: earth, water, magic, chaos. Reference: in attachments. She basically has an outfit close to Eon's, except her belt is supposed to hold traps, and she wears a white veil on her skirt which has the shape of the trap team symbol. She used to fight side by side with the Skylanders in her youth, but she fled the academy after violently protesting against many of its beliefs. After many years on her own, she learned how to bend Traptanium, and still holds some of the traps, for better or worse. Her Traptanium powers can not only create crystal structures or armor, she strictly refuses to make clothes with them, no frozen plagiarism, but can also block and absorb elemental attacks or enemies. When an attack is absorbed, the Traptanium goes from crystal clear to the color of the element and could not absorb other elements, only block them. You can still see through the crystal after an attack, except if it's absorbed a chaos attack, in which case it becomes pitch black.
Victoire. Victoire. Victory. I'm part French, I'm very sorry, but I think I butchered that. Traptanium Portal Master, my beloved. If I'm being completely honest, I love absolutely everything about this character. From her morally gray stance to the fact that rather than an elemental affinity, she wields Treptanium. Plus, the fact that she's a villain therapist makes it all the better. I adore the fact that she's covered in Treptanium shards, and I desperately want to know how they got there. Was she born with it? Is it a side effect of her powers? Again, the only downside to this character is I wish there was more information given. Even without it though, all the details that were given play a crucial part, which is amazing. Everything has a purpose. I also love how you fleshed out Treptanium a bit through her powers. I'm always a sucker for world building. I'm unsure how she'd get to this point, but I can imagine her being in charge of the reformed villains. Or just a therapist for the villains side. Not really in line with them, but wanting to help out with their underlying issues, since I imagine she'd probably prefer them over the Skylanders after what happened. Which I really want to know more about. Maybe once the Tomb Raiders are reformed, she just kind of joins back into the Skylanders, or still functions as a villain psychiatrist, or is just branching out to try to help everyone. Maybe even try to make the Skylanders less black and white in their beliefs. Though I can also see that causing a lot of tension. Entry 14. Bitter. Submitted by ChunChunMaru.
Information. Hi, my name is Bitter Skipping Dina. You can call me BSD for short. Strangely, I used to be a human. However, my body mutated when I tried to travel from the human world to Skylands. This resulted in my body becoming a soft gelatin ship. Half of my body is reptilian as well. Anyways, my powers as a portal master consist of time. I can look back through time to see the history of an area. However, this only lasts for a few seconds and recharging after an hour. Other information. Height 6 feet. He, him. 13. Life element.
Oh my gods. It's the long-awaited Fall Guys crossover. Jokes aside, the design of this character is much different than anything else that's submitted, and I'm living for that. I decided to over-exaggerate his hat and decided to get rid of the shirt, feeling that it took away from the inhuman appearance. I kept the glasses though, because I'm a sucker for glasses. Since his backstory mentioned he originally came from Earth, I added a Portal Master core to his belt. I went ham with making his body look translucent and gooey because I have such a fun time drawing those kinds of things. He looks like a chew toy and I want to put him between my teeth. While combining the way I draw scales with that was a little difficult, I think it turned out pretty good. I could see Bitter having a power where the scales grow all over his body like natural armor, boosting his defense for a short while. I also gave him little green paw pads, because I thought it would be cute. On top of his scale ability, perhaps rather than just having him see the future, maybe eating his jelly could have the person in question see a glimpse of the future. The current way his ability works is good too. I just wanted to toss that idea in there. Probably because he looks like a little scaly gummy bear and I think it would be funny. My only issue with him would have to be his height. And I put issue lightly. Probably because imagining him to be 6 feet tall is very mind-boggling to me. I do possibly have a solution for that though. Since he's gelatinous, perhaps he's able to stretch and squash his body when not covered in scales. So regularly he's a squash tic-tac, but if needed he can elongate to reach higher up things or get through special puzzles. It also seems like he'd be good buds with Hugo, but that might be me projecting. Entry 15, Solstice, submitted by BlissOfAbyss.
Name, Solstice, originally known as Magistrate Epoch. Birthday, unknown. Age, claims to be in his 20s, yet isn't sure of himself. Gender/sex, male, but goes by they, them, him pronouns. Sexuality, asexual. Occupation, Portal Master. Elements, air and earth. Ethnicity/species, Harpy. Height, 5 feet 7 inches. Weight, 165 pounds. Body type, don't let his robe fool you, he is very muscular. General personality, a very playful and exuberant man, one who enjoys the simple things in life. He usually fails to take most situations seriously, only realizing when it's too late that something has gotten out of hand. Backstory: Magistrate Epoch was the air portal master of the eastern islands of Skylands, a refined and stoic man. Him and his Skylanders watched over the land. Despite his intensity and his regal stature, he was often questioned for his oath of nonviolence, many arguing that his methods were useless in truly stopping evil. When the Great Portal Master War began, the east of Skylands was an open target for Dark Portal Masters. To no surprise, it was quickly overrun and destroyed. Epoch was believed to have fallen along with his Skylanders, and was, for the most part, lost to history. Many centuries later, the Skylanders were alerted to the presence of new Portal Masters. Solstice was a young monk, attending a runic monastery. He was recognized by Master Eon to be Magistrate Epoch, yet Solstice had no memory nor could recall most of his life. Even at the question of how did you lose your arms, Solstice still could not ever recall how such a thing happened. When returning to the Magistrate's Temple, which was now overrun by air pirates, Solstice did not recognize his own home. Even with his lack of memories, Solstice still wishes to protect Skylands, and hopefully regain some sort of memory back. Most of my inspiration for Magistrate Epoch came from Chinese emperors and empresses, along with his makeup and hairstyle, while Solstice's design came from Chinese and Taiwanese monks. I couldn't finish the last picture, sadly, but here's the poor sketch I did of what he looks like with no robe on. I was originally going to make Solstice's hair longer than Epoch's, until I learned that in ancient culture, to cut your hair means to forget your past, so thus, Solstice's hair became shorter than Epoch's.
Can I just start by saying I love that you included your inspirations and thought process on the creation of this character? It really gave me a lot of insight into where you drew your ideas from and the real-life ties the design has. That is some of my favorite shit, I kid you not. While I was torn on who to draw, I eventually settled on Solstice, though I do have to say I'm such a fan of the time motif you included with Epoch's name, keeping in theme with Eon. It's one of my favorite headcanons that the majority of old Portal Masters have time-related names, at least the good ones. I didn't end up changing much with my interpretation of Solstice, though I did accidentally make their arms too long for where they were supposed to be amputated, so I'm really sorry about that. I love how Epoch and Solstice's personalities differ from one another, really bringing home that new life/reincarnation vibe. I also love how the orbs on Epoch's hairpins became the cracked ones on Solstice's sleeves. The little subtle changes like that really bring the entire design together. In a hypothetical game, I can see there being a quest to recruit Solstice and bring them back to the Academy, then perhaps a follow-up one for the aforementioned return to Epoch's now overrun temple. While I don't think restoring their memories would be a necessity, or even like something that would come up. Perhaps mention of it where it's like, hey, it would be cool if I could learn these things, but I'm my own person now, so it doesn't really need to happen. Learning more about their connection through the level would be so cool. And just more about Epoch in general. Also in this hypothetical game, if all the Portal Masters entered would be a part of it, I could see Solstice getting along well with Even Star. Watching their antics, and maybe even helping with a few of their pranks, would be so much fun. Entry 16. Oh, well, that was weird. Let me try that again. Entry 16. Miina. Submitted by KobalArt.
Name: Miina. Element: light. Other elements: like most Portal Masters, with practice and exercise she became able to use any element, although her core is the light one, which she discovered as soon as she arrived in the Skylands. Description: Miina is 22 years old, and she is a bright, sunny girl, but can be shy often. She is always up to help others and believes everyone deserves a chance to redeem themselves. She can be naive at times, if emotions come into play, but she doesn't let others manipulate her easily still. She likes reading, studying things like occultism and magic, and has a passion for writing. She has short and messy ash-brown hair, hazel eyes, and she is of average weight and height. She dresses usually with a green vest that reaches her knees, and has a hood. She also wears brownish trousers, leather fingerless gloves, and a belt of the same cut. She has dark brown boots, too, and brings with her a small bag and a pin with the Skylands rune, gift from Eon. One day, while walking through a path she had never taken before in the forest, she found a weird rock formation. She sat to rest, but little did she know that she would accidentally activate the portal made by the ancient Earth Portal Masters, and get catapulted to the Skylands. When she got there, she was lost and could not activate back the portal, as she did not know how to use her powers yet. With time, she adapted to survive in the Skylands, but one lucky day, the village she had found refuge in was attacked by some villains, and that is how she met the Skylanders and Master Eon, that immediately recognized she was different. From that moment on, Miina started her training as a Portal Master and became one of Eon's apprentices.
I quite like the dingy and more desaturated colors she has going on. Not typically what I'd see for a light-based Portal Master, but it's a take I really like. At first when I was drawing her, I forgot the turtleneck sort of collar on her top, but I added it in like halfway through the coloring process. I don't know if the stuff on her face was just shading, but I ended up adding a sort of like dusty eyeshadow kind of thing because of it, so I really hope it works with her character. I quite like that she's originally from Earth, but didn't end up getting sent to Skylands through the game. It's a different take on the trope that I think really works. Having the two be linked through like remnants of a portal that were left ages ago. I didn't draw it, because I think I forgot, but I could imagine her portal core attached to the section where her sash and belt meet, or perhaps even being a part of the rune pin Eon gave her, like a hidden thing that unlocks when she gets herself in a particularly bad situation on an adventure or something. The indents of the rune could let the light of the core shine through when it's active, and stuff like that. I do wish I got a little more information on her life before she was whisked away to Skylands, and perhaps even when she was living in the village, but that's really the only gripe I have. I really hope you like her. Entry 17. Amber Peligro. Submitted by Shawn Boyd. I'm really sorry if I'm saying her last name wrong.
Name: Amber Peligro. Preferred element: tech. Physical description: white, blonde hair, string of hair over the left side of her face, scratch on right eyebrow, freckles, small scar on her chin, lipstick, cowgirl hat with goggles on top, sleeveless jacket with plaid shirt underneath, tech element on the back of her jacket, 2 scratches on her back, bandage on her right arm, homemade gloves with electronic devices on them, bruise on her left elbow, bite mark on her right arm, burn mark on her left palm, jeans with a hole on the left side, belt with a tech element belt buckle, 2 holsters, bruise on the right knee, missing toe on left foot, cowgirl boots with Skyland symbols on them, costume color scheme, orange and light brown with bits of yellow. Backstory: Amber grew up on a ranch where she spent her days exploring the frontier with her family. But unlike her family, she also loved exploring new technologies and inventing gadgets. One day, while exploring on her own, Amber came across a canyon which contained parts to a mysterious device. Unknown to her, this was a portal of power. For days, she studied the pieces in order to find out what it was and rebuild it. Unfortunately, Amber managed to activate the portal prematurely, causing it to explode. After the explosion knocked her out, Amber woke up to find herself in a whole new world, filled with floating islands. Excited to explore this new world, she ventured out in search of adventure. During her travels, Amber came across some Skylanders who introduced her to Master Eon. Eon was impressed by Amber's thirst for adventure and ability to understand portal technology so quickly. With training, Amber eventually became a brilliant portal master who finds new and unique ways to use portals, all while protecting and exploring the Skylands. Other facts: gender, female. Species: Earth human. Age: 14. Birthday: April 2nd, 2007. Height: 5 feet 3 inches. Weight: 117 pounds. Personality: curious, risk-taker, wild, intelligent/creative, always looking for new adventures, competitive, bit of a hopeless romantic. Amber's core beliefs: freedom and innovation. Flaws: tends to do things without thinking first. Reckless at times. Gets distracted. Often late. Weapons: Amber built her 2 portal blasters out of a couple of small portals. These not only function as more accurate portals, but they also allow Amber to store items/people inside of the portals. Then she shoots where she wants the item/person to go, teleports them there. For example, she can shoot a boulder to store it inside the portal blaster, then shoot above an enemy so the boulder falls on top of the enemy. Or she can store an enemy in the blaster and then teleport them off the cliff. Portal blasters can also shoot regular lasers. Loves exploring. Studies portal technology. Amber's curiosity can sometimes get her into trouble. Loves riding different kinds of wild animals. Anything from cyclops mammoths to leviathans. Amber hates boredom and too many restrictions. Amber loves her scars and bruises. They remind her of her many adventures. Amber's biggest enemy is the cobra-like hypnotist, Trancer. Using his powers to enslave the minds of Skylands, Trancer's ultimate goal is to stop crime by taking away everyone's freedom. Even though Amber has managed to put a stop to all of Trancer's plans, he always manages to escape capture. Controlling and egotistical, Trancer represents everything Amber hates. Trancer's personality is also the complete opposite of Amber's. While Amber is wild and a bit reckless, Trancer is sophisticated and calculating. Has a mom, dad, and 3 brothers, 1 older, 2 younger. Has a pet horse on Earth named Circuit. Amber was homeschooled before arriving in Skylands. Amber's best friend is Stormblade. Amber has a crush on an elf boy named Keith. Amber's biggest fears are enclosed spaces and ghosts. Likes collecting animal claws she finds lying around, and crystals/gems. Likes to pull pranks on people. Favorite food is ice cream. Finds it hard to relax and do nothing. Always feels the need to be active. Favorite color is green. Favorite type of music is rock and roll. Knows how to play the guitar. Likes to sing karaoke. Knows how to speak English and a little bit of Spanish. Favorite sport is soccer. Favorite holiday is Thanksgiving. Amber is currently learning karate. Favorite book/movie genre is romantic comedy. Favorite mission. While Amber and her Skylanders were sent to protect a train full of valuable crystals, they were attacked by Chaos's troops and a fire viper. The fire viper was the most dangerous creature Amber faced, which made it all the more fun when she eventually got on its back and rode it. She managed to ultimately use the fire viper to defeat the bad guys. The only bad part was that Amber wasn't allowed to keep the fire viper as a pet, but she did get a cool scar from the adventure.
I'm not gonna lie, I got a little overwhelmed with all the information presented here, but, like, in the best way possible. If you couldn't tell, I'm a sucker for detail, since that seems to be my only consistent gripe with these entries. I say gripe loosely. I love all of them, they're all so good. I do think, for this one specifically, it could have been organized a little more concisely, but that's more my personal preference than anything. I really do appreciate all the details mentioned in her description. Even with the drawing included, it helped me hone in on a lot of the smaller details I might have overlooked when drawing her. I love the adaptation of the portal core into tech guns. It really suits the tech element leaning she has. I added little tech spurs on her boots and made her jeans blue to break up the warmer color palette. Because of the pose I drew her in, I couldn't show the tech bits on her gloves, which I'm a little sad about. Speaking of, I don't think it's mentioned what the tech on her gloves actually does, so I'd love to know a little more about that. If she didn't have her blasters, that'd probably be where I'd put the portal core, swapping out one of the little circular node things. Even with all the details, I couldn't find her eye color, though I may have just overlooked it. So I made them green. I hope it works. I also gave her a little gap in her teeth that I don't think was mentioned anywhere. I don't think I had a specific reason why, I just liked how it looked. I love that it was her recklessness that directly played into how she ended up getting sent to Skylands, and I find it kind of funny that she gets blown sky high. Like I said with Miina, I really like that she wasn't sent to Skylands through the game. Nothing wrong with doing it that way, of course. I just like new interpretations/takes. I could see the little story about her favorite mission being a really interesting side quest in a game. I could also see Amber offering upgrades, not necessarily to the Skylanders themselves, but if the Portal Master is part of the game, then she could offer upgrades to their tech and abilities and stuff. I could also see her getting along well with Mags, maybe mentoring under her to learn about different Skylanders tech specifically. Take a shot every time I say tech in this section. Don't, actually, I think you would die. Entry 18. Kamix. Submitted by Cammy Crazy.
Name: Kamix. Element: Air. Age: 23. Moveset: she is new to the Portal Master deal, so she's still finding herself. Electric Charge. Eye of the Storm. Breathless. She came to Skylands by being too curious. While stopping by her grandfather's antique shop, an old relic caught her eye. Her grandfather told her how it must have been part of something. He had started assembling bits in the basement and only brought up what he thought were extra pieces, or bits that didn't belong. The machine was rather big, the tip touching the ceiling. It was a large copper hoop, near finished, and he planned to donate it to the museum or sell it to an art gallery when finished. The dial pad was still a bust, so he had to improvise with bits of modernized tech as well as other scraps of metal. The relic she held in her hand glowed when near the machine, so she placed it onto the pad and, though it wasn't finished yet, let out a spark, then a burst of blinding light, then nothing. She was gone, and in the blink of an eye, she appeared atop a floating island in a plaza surrounded by odd-looking creatures. With time, she was taught what a Portal Master is, and that they can come and go as they please from the realm, though some choose to stay, as is what she picked. Now she stays and helps the landers, and grown attached to Wallop, who was kind enough to help her get settled and familiar with some of the area.
Again, not sure if I'm saying the name right. I had a bit of a hard time choosing a pose for Kamix here, since I didn't get much of a personality from her entry, aside from her being hands-on and a bit of an artist. Alright, editing Scrape here yet again. Apologies for another interruption, but it's taken me this long to realize that I misunderstood Kamix's backstory. It wasn't her that made the portal, it was her grandpa. But my general point still stands. Though I also want to add, I think it would have been cool if her and her grandpa had made it together. But, that aside, my points and everything still stand. I just wanted to clear that up. I swear I can read, I promise. So I made it up as I went along. I do like that she made the portal herself to get to Skylands, however unintentionally, from the stuff in her grandfather's antique shop. I'm not sure if the relic is supposed to be the crystal thing on her belt, or the one on her bandana, which I'm just now realizing I think is actually the clasp for her cloak. Whoops. That aside, I've swapped the clasp for a portal core, which could have either been the relic mentioned in her backstory, or something she was given when she started on her Portal Master training. I also forgot the marks under her left eye, so I'm really sorry about that. Speaking of which, I know her species isn't mentioned, but it does say she's from Earth, though to me she doesn't look quite human. The marks give me dragon vibes, kind of like scales almost, and the eyes don't look human either, but nothing in her entry makes mention of that, so I'm honestly not sure. I also wish there was more details in her moveset. I really like the names of her attacks/abilities, and I can sort of glean what they do, but I'd still like some more explicit mention of what they can actually do. Aside from that, I really like her. Her hair is very floofy, and I can just imagine it feels like touching a cloud. I'm not quite sure what her role in a hypothetical game could be, aside from a rescuable ally you could add to your team. Though she does sort of give me Pokemon rival vibes, so maybe something similar to that. Entry 19, Zach. Submitted by Flashposion.
Zach, the Shadow Whisperer. Element, dark. Age, 15. Favorite activity, meditating. Favorite Skylander, blackout. Favorite food, corn dogs. Relationships, Ryu. Childhood friend, Diana. Older stepsister, Gio. Little stepbrother, George. Ex-friend, Malvin. Stepfather, Crystal. Stepmother, Max. Best friend, Stella. Crush, Alex. School bully, Leo. School bully. Information. Zach is a 15-year-old boy who had lost sight of his parents when he was exploring a cave at the age of 10. He was found by a man who took care of him until he would find his parents. The man took Zach to his home where he met the man's family, who didn't accept him at first, but over time, they slowly see what an amazing person he is.
Okay, I have to admit, I strayed really far from the original design on this one, but I just couldn't help it. I just had the image of a 15-year-old boy discovering Skylands is real, that he has powers, and that he proceeds to go ham, making his outfit as bomb as it could possibly be. Of course, based around his favorite Skylander. I kept the hoodie, though I added a, part he could pull up over his mouth. It's not pictured, but the hood would probably have little fang bits on it too. I assume the little armor bit on his chest was his portal core, though I moved the armor down to his legs and kept the portal core up there, just shifted it a little to the side. I also added an asymmetrical, cape wing doohickey bit on the other side, also based on Blackout. I went extremely wild with the Blackout motif, and I really hope you don't mind. I also put that good old anime band-aid on the bridge of his nose, because I imagine he'd probably get into a lot of scrapes or tumbles while exploring around the academy. Also, can I just gush about the Blackout design on his leg guards? I'm so happy with how it turned out. It's one of my favorite details in this entire design. Okay, enough self-gratification. I want to mention a few questions I have for his entry. It mentions he got lost at age 10 in a cave, which I thought was going to be his entry to Skylands, but as far as I can tell, it's not. Unless I'm missing that the man that found him was an elf or a Mabu or something, which is entirely plausible. It also mentioned he's known as the Shadow Whisperer, which is a bomb-ass title and I love it. But what does that exactly mean? I'd love more insight into that kind of thing. He's also yet another member of Star, Eve, and Solstice's prank gang. Changed my mind. I love how through this entire thing I've just been creating this weird hypothetical mishmash game of all of our OCs. Gotta love it. And would you look at that? That's the last one. I wanted to give one last thank you to everyone who entered their characters, and of course for everyone being so patient with me, as this took literally years for me to finish. I don't want to fill the end of this video with excuses, but it really does mean so much that you all were along for this fucking ride of a project. Just for the fun of it, I wanted to take this last bit to, tally up the Portal Masters. Find out the most popular elements and shit. I know it's just a sample size of 19, but I'm still curious. So, welcome to Scrape's last minute Portal Master Roundup. Out of 22 Portal Masters, counting alt forms, 5 are old Portal Masters, 13 are new, and 6 fall somewhere in between. For the elements, there are 4 that were aligned with life or magic, 3 that were aligned with undead, tech, fire, or air, 2 with water, earth, and dark, 1 with light, 1 with chaos, 1 with a custom element, and 1 where the core element wasn't mentioned. And finally, there are 16 good Portal Masters, 2 dark, and 6 unaligned or unspecified. Wait. That math doesn't add up. There were only 22. Why is there 2? Oh no. Oh fuck, here it comes. One last entry. And it's my own Portal Master. Why did I think this was a good idea to include at the end of the video? Oh well. Enjoy!
Flame of fires and fury, and century of embers and entropy. They/she and she/her. Both appear to be around 20 to 25. Awoke under the sign of Sagittarius and born under the sign of Aries. Non-binary ace and female demi. Their themes are Let the Flames Begin and Part 2 by Paramore. Their tag/code name is Ablaze Embers. Backstory. Century was a young Portal Master from the time of the Great War, going through her training. She was neither remarkable nor prodigious, just another face in a class of many, but that didn't stop her from trying her best. She was just another perfectly average Portal Master. Between her studies and practices, Century was researching a phenomenon she had found in a cave nearby her village. Crystallized energy that seemed to somehow be made of her core element, fire. It was a fascinating, comforting place to her, and she took to treating it like her own little sanctuary. Some days, she would even speak to the crystals that covered the walls, letting it know all her dreams, aspirations, and worries when she had no one else to talk to. All was well, until her village was attacked. The forces of darkness were at her doorstep, and in a panic, Century fled. She sought refuge in that very cave she had poured her heart out in hundreds of times before, her tears soaking the crystalline floors as she cowered. Through the screams and the sounds of fighting outside, she felt a pull towards the center of the crystal structure, muddled voices drawing her closer. Her fingers locked around a glowing section and pried it free, releasing a plume of blazing hot energy. It engulfed her, searing away her body to bring forth something new. Flame emerged from the remnants, and, unsure of who or what she was supposed to be fighting, set the village ablaze. When the fire finally died down, the survivors turned on Flame, driving her out, believing her to be yet another creature from the side of the darkness. Lost and alone, Flame found a remote island to call her own, finding a cave deep below the surface, where she went into a state of hibernation, becoming nothing but an urban legend in the modern day. Until, one day, she was awoken. Fun facts. Both Flame and Century's core element is fire. While not technically a Portal Master in the traditional sense, Flame shares a body with one, so it counts. Despite being from Skylands, Century has to use a portal core to channel her powers after reawakening. Century's favorite food is mutton pie and spiced hot chocolate. Flame's favorite food is fresh mango with tahini and a spiced herbal tea. They both share a love for spicy food, though Flame prefers lighter food overall, fresh fruit, vegetables, stuff like that. whereas Sentry prefers hearty meals like stew, pot pie, food that feeds the soul and the stomach. Flame is a being made of pure elemental energy. If it weren't for Sentry, she'd probably still be stuck in that cave to this day. Sentry does her best to not hold any animosity towards Flame, knowing she was just trying to help. Stats: Flame. Attack 8. Defense 4. Agility 7. Intelligence 6. Sentry. Attack 6. Defense 8. Agility 4. Intelligence 7.
Okay, now that's actually the last one. After seeing everyone's amazing entries, I couldn't help but feel inspired to redo my own old-ass Portal Master OC. It's not actually an entry, of course. I just wanted to share her with the world. And if any of you guys want to critique her like I did your characters, I would be more than happy to hear any and all feedback you have. Enough of my rambling now, though. I've kept you guys here long enough. To make up for how long this took, I'm changing the prize up a little. I don't actually remember what I had originally said for the prize, but on top of the chibis I drew for everyone, one entry will get a deluxe reference of their OC, or any equivalent drawing if that's not something you want. It's not the most exciting prize, but I hope the winner likes it. Speaking of, I'm sure we all want to hear who won. It was an extremely hard choice, and I'm not just saying that. I loved everyone's entries so much. I had a couple impartial judges, my friends, give me some pointers, and with their help, I managed to narrow it down to a handful of my favorites. So, without further ado, I'm happy to finally announce the winner of Scrape's Portal Master Sona contest. Drumroll, please. Solstice! Wheel gag aside, it was definitely a close toss-up between my favorites, but after rereading them all, Solstice just stood out among the rest. Bliss's entry hit basically every box I was looking for. So, yeah. BlissOfAbyss, please DM or email me and we can discuss your prize. And everyone else, thank you again for submitting your characters and coming along for this ride. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. So, that's it. That's the actual end. 19 fantastic entries and countless sleepless nights at the grindstone. I'd love to know what you guys thought of the video. Was it worth the wait? Would you have given any other critiques to the entries that I didn't? Who was your favorite of the bunch that you thought deserved to win? If you'd entered a Portal Master, what would it be like? I'd love to hear everyone's thoughts in the comments, and who knows, maybe I'll do another one of these in the future. One even bigger. One even better. One that'll go even further beyond. Hopefully one that won't take me 3 years to complete. And once again, thank you, Single Portal Master, for watching this video. I've been Scrape, and I hope you have a good night.